Alright, just briefly run through some terminology here so we're all on the same page. A megalith is a large stone that has been used to construct a prehistoric structure or monument. Either alone or together with other stones, there are over 35,000 structures or arrangements in Europe alone, located widely from Sweden to the Mediterranean Sea. A petroglyph is an image created by removing part of a rock surface through techniques such as incising, picking, carving, or abrading. These images are a form of rock art and are often associated with prehistoric peoples. Geoglyphs. A geoglyph is a large design or motif produced on the ground. It is typically formed by clastic rocks or similarly durable elements of the landscape, such as stones, stone fragments, live trees, gravel, or earth. Geoglyphs are created by positioning stones or removing earth or surface rock to create lines or spaces that contrast with the surrounding terrain. This fascinating content can be found right across the globe. However, this video will only be focusing on one particular area, one which I've wandered alone. I want to take you on an art trail, exhibiting the most exquisite and profound art to date. Where? Not far, as within walking distance from where I live. These ancient masterpieces are tattooed into the landscape, meaning that the ground has been carved and precisely shaped to work like a giant sundial, casting shadows and rendering the details on specific dates using light provided by solar and lunar cycles, reflecting and sometimes even projecting the heavens upon the earth. I have no doubt that most will find this all hard to believe, so each episode I've made to be conclusive with the objective truth. This which you can measure, discern, and confirm for yourself. As you could imagine, the hardest part of this project was knowing where to start, so please bear with me for the lengthy first episode. To gain perspective, let's take a few steps back to look at the bigger picture and prepare the mind to reframe how we see mankind's ancient ancestor, his sacred art, and our own otherworldly hidden potential. Episode 1. A tribute to the most formidable earthmovers, knowledgeable astronomers, and phenomenal artists this new world has never seen.
There have been catastrophes. The catastrophes have been very real. They're nothing that's just some kind of wacko New Age speculation, but have been scientifically confirmed over and over again.
Harmonic 695, The Pulse of the Universe. Written by the Auckland Airport pilot, Bruce Leonard Caffey. Quote, "Builders in stone. There are men among us who understand the mathematical secrets which govern the universe. Now they are frantically, but clandestinely, trying to find ways of putting them into practical use. One cause for both the haste and secrecy has been the inevitable realization that we are not alone in the universe. There's ample evidence that intelligent beings visited this planet thousands of years ago. Traces of long past civilizations in many respects far more advanced than our own can be found in ancient structures. The evidence of superiority, in every sense, of the ancients has shaken those who have rediscovered their legacies. An analogy would be the sudden discovery by lifelong inmates of a mental hospital that there was a world of superior intelligence just beyond their locked gates. We have been visited and watched for possibly thousands of years, while our 20th century sciences have opened up the doors of space for us. It is also reasonable to assume that the ancients had knowledge far in advance of our own, and that space travel was to them a natural adjunct to their civilization. In spite of their great intelligence and frightening control over sources of power and energy, they were unable to prevent whatever the catastrophes were that visited the planet and eradicated many signs of their life here. With the state of the world as it is at present, our modern scientists must speculate many times a day on our chances of survival. Were there survivors of the ancient civilizations? And if so, what became of them?
Their whole world got wiped out, but obviously there were places of refuge, and that's another part of the traditional knowledge that's handed down, is this knowledge of the places of refuge. And there were places of refuge, and science is confirming that there were places of refuge on the planet. Places where you would have probably wanted to be during the last transition between the world ages.
The dust of centuries had settled upon the remains of this great world, wide archaic construction when the Greeks came upon the scene. Yet something of it survived in traditional rites, in myths and fairy tales no longer understood. Taken verbally, it matured the bloody cults intended to procure fertility based on the belief in a dark universal force of an ambivalent nature, which seems now to monopolize our interest. Yet its original themes could flash out again, preserved almost intact in the later thought of the Pythagoreans and of Plato. But they are tantalizing fragments of a lost whole. They make one think of those mist landscapes of which Chinese painters are masters, which show here a rock, here a gable, there the tip of a tree, and leave the rest to imagination. Even when the code shall have yielded, when the techniques shall be known, we cannot expect to gauge the thought of those remote ancestors of ours, wrapped as it is in symbols. Their words are no more heard again through lapse of many ages. We think we have now broken part of that code. The thought behind these constructions of the high and far-off times is also lofty, even if its forms are strange. The theory about how the world began seems to involve the breaking asunder of a harmony, a kind of cosmogonic original sin whereby the circle of the ecliptic with the zodiac was tilted up at an angle with respect to the equator, and the cycles of change came into being. This is not to suggest that this archaic cosmology will show any great physical discoveries, although it required prodigious feats of concentration and computing. What it did was to mark out the unity of the universe and of man's mind reaching out to its farthest limits. Truly, man is doing the same today.
Throughout this series, at times I will be using certain special effects to help convey the concepts visually. I have no intent to trick the viewer with any video effects. For clarity, I've made up signals like this little camera here, which will be in the corner of the screen. This camera here signifies that the footage playing has zero added effects or edits.
Or mystical organizations, however you want to think of them, whose main purpose has been to preserve and transmit these traditions of this lost knowledge. Not only the knowledge, the scientific knowledge that was within the purview of these cultures, but also the knowledge of the great cycles and the great events that have caused the termination of these cultures. In other words, here they are preserving this body of lost knowledge. Well, part of it is, why is the knowledge, or how did the knowledge become lost in the first place? But the proof of that is that we're here. We have not become an extinct species. The reason we haven't become an extinct species is because we humans have intelligence, we have foresight, scientific discoveries, verifying that, floods on a biblical scale have actually happened. Not that the whole world has been uniformly covered in water, but floods on a scale such that the survivors could easily conclude, the whole world got wiped out. The whole world got wiped out. Their whole world got wiped out.
Years ago, if somebody were to tell me that I'd be making a film with the most famous stars of all time, I'd think they were bloody full of it. So without further ado, with blood, sweat and tears, I bring to you the As Above, So Below show.